When you hear Mutiny on the Bounty, what's the first thing that comes to mind? For me, it's always Hollywood.
Oh, absolutely. Clark Gable, Mel Gibson, a hero sailing off to a tropical paradise.
Exactly. It's this grand romance, this rebellion against a tyrant.
Mm.
But when you actually dig into the stack of sources we have today, the logs, the archaeology, that picture just completely falls apart.
It really does. The genre isn't romance. It's more like, I don't know, true crime in the Pacific.
Yes. It's basically a Lord of the Flies situation on a tiny volcanic rock, complete with homemade booze, murder, madness. It's dark.
It's incredibly dark. And that's our mission for this deep dive. We're not going to relitigate the whole Bligh versus Christian debate.
No, that's been done to death.
We're looking at what happened after. What happened on Pitcairn Island? How did this tiny multicultural group try to build a society from shit parts? And why did it all go so wrong so fast?
Yeah, we've got some amazing sources to guide us. There's a PhD thesis on the archaeology of the settlement, an academic article on this bizarre calendar confusion they had.
Oh, the Thursday versus Friday thing, that's one of my favorite details. It shows how isolation just warps everything, even time itself.
Okay, so let's set the stage. The HMS Bounty, it wasn't a warship, was it? It was more like a floating greenhouse.
A botanical delivery truck, yeah. It's 1787, and the British need a cheap way to feed enslaved people on their sugar plantations in the West Indies.
So breadfruit, high carb, grows easily.
That's the plan. Transport breadfruit from Tahiti to the Caribbean. The whole voyage is a business trip. And that meant the ship was cramped, it was stressful, and you have Lieutenant William Bligh in charge.
Right, the famous tyrant. But the naval records we looked at show his flogging rate was actually pretty low for the time.
He wasn't necessarily a sadist, no, but he was a micromanager with a vicious tongue. The psychological pressure was immense.
When it all blows up over some coconuts.
That was the catalyst, yeah. So April 28, 1789, the mutiny happens. It's bloodless at first.
Yeah.
They put Bligh and 18 loyalists into a 23-foot open boat.
And we have to just stop there for a second. Because what Bligh does next is, frankly, one of the greatest feats of navigation in history.
It is absolutely staggering. He sailed 3,618 nautical miles to Timor.
With what? He had a sextant and a quadrant? No proper charts?
No chronometer, nothing. He was doing it all by dead reckoning. And they were attacked. The quartermaster was stoned to death when they stopped for supplies.
Just incredible.
But he made it. And Bligh's survival is what sealed Fletcher Christian's fate. Christian knew the Royal Navy would come hunting for him.
So they need to disappear. They try settling on an island called Tubuai, but that goes badly.
Very badly. Bloody conflict with the locals. So they go back to Tahiti, and the group splits.
And this is where we get our cast of characters for the Pitcairn tragedy, the group that goes with Christian.
Yes, and the demographics here are so important. It's a ticking time bomb. You have 9 European mutineers, 6 Tahitian men, and 12 Tahitian women, plus a baby girl.
And the power dynamic is just completely skewed from the start.
Totally. Some women, like Moatua, who was Christian's partner, seem to have gone willingly. But other sources say some were basically tricked, or even kidnapped. Christian just sailed away while they were on board.
So they're desperate, sailing around the Pacific, looking for a place to hide. And they find Pitcairn. Why there?
It was a mistake, a mapping error.
A mistake?
Yeah, the island was misplaced on the Royal Navy's charts by nearly 200 miles. It was the perfect hiding spot because, officially, it wasn't there.
A ghost island. That's brilliant.
So they arrive in January 1790. They manage to get the ship into what's now called Bounty Bay. And then they make the final, irreversible decision.
They burn the ship.
They burn the Bounty.
We have that account from Jenny, one of the Tahitian women. She said the mutineers were weeping as it burned.
It was their last link to the world. Their return ticket, gone. And the Paradise thing, it lasted for about 5 minutes.
They immediately set up the old class system, didn't they?
Immediately. The 9 white men divided all the land. The 6 Tahitian men, who were skilled and capable individuals, got nothing. They were treated like servants.
And then there's the math problem with the women.
Right. 15 men, 12 women. The Europeans just sort of assumed they had first pick, and the whole thing ignites when the wife of a mutineer named John Williams falls from a cliff and dies.
And instead of mourning her, he just demands a new one.
He demands the wife of one of the Tahitian men, and the other mutineers back him up. For the Tahitian men, that's the last straw. No land, no rights, and now their families are being torn apart.
So this is where the true crime part really kicks in. 1793, the massacre.
It's a coordinated uprising by the Tahitian men. They kill 5 of the mutineers,
Including Fletcher Christian.
including Fletcher Christian. The leader of the rebellion is one of the first to die on the island. The Hollywood version definitely skips that part.
So the protagonist is dead, but the killing isn't over.
Not even close. The 4 remaining Europeans, with help from some of the women who sided with them, retaliated. They hunted down and killed all 6 of the Tahitian men.
So let's do a head count. After 3 years, 5 mutineers are dead, and all 6 Tahitian men are dead.
We're left with 4 mutineers: Edward Young, John Adams, Matthew Quintal, and William McCoy, and the women and children.
And the psychological state of the island must have been just horrific.
There's a detail in Edward Young's journal. He writes about how the women were keeping the skull of Jack Williams, the guy whose wife died, and he had to order them to bury it.
That is unbelievably grim. And into this horror show, they introduce alcohol.
Homemade alcohol, yes. William McCoy knew how to build a still. He figures out how to ferment the root of the local Thai plant.
Oh, no.
And he uses the Bounty's old copper kettle to distill it into a powerful spirit.
I can see where this is going.
McCoy drinks himself into a delirium and jumps off a cliff. Matthew Quintal becomes so violent and paranoid from the drink that the other 2 men...
Well, they banish him.
They execute him with an axe for the safety of the community.
Wow.
So then there were 2, John Adams and Edward Young. Young dies of asthma a few years later, around 1800. And then there was 1.
John Adams, the
Yeah.
last man standing. And this is where the story takes such a strange turn. He could have become a tyrant.
But he doesn't. He finds the Bounty's old Bible, which he hasn't touched in years, and he starts teaching. He teaches the women and children to read using the Bible and builds this very pious, very structured little society.
Like an act of penance.
It could be.
Yeah.
Or just the only way he knew how to create order out of all that chaos.
I want to go back to the women, though, because the sources are pretty clear that while Adams was holding the Bible, they were the ones actually holding the society together.
Oh, 100%. The women of the Bounty sources show how essential they were. The English sailors didn't know how to survive there. They didn't know how to process food, which plants were safe, how to fish the reefs.
And the tapa cloth, I thought that was fascinating.
Yes. Tapa is a traditional bark cloth, and making it is a communal activity only done by women. The archaeology shows they kept this tradition alive on Pitcairn. It was their cultural space where they could bond and maintain their own social structure away from the men.
So they weren't just passive, they resisted. I read they tried to build a raft to escape at one point.
They did. It capsized. And there was another plot where they planned to kill all the remaining men in their sleep. They were active players in their own story.
Let's talk about how they literally built that world. The archaeology thesis you mentioned is so cool. They didn't just burn the Bounty, they recycled it.
They strip-mined it. The main reason for burning it was to get the copper bolts and iron nails out of the hull. They hammered those into fishhooks, tools, everything.
And they salvaged the anvil.
The anvil and the vise. Without those, you can't do any metalwork, you can't forge or repair your tools. They would have been back in the Stone Age in a generation without that anvil.
And their houses weren't quite English, not quite Tahitian.
No, they were a perfect blend, a hybrid. They used European-style timber framing, but with Polynesian thatching for the roofs. It's a perfect metaphor for the culture they were creating.
What about the cannons? The big guns?
The 4-pounders, mostly useless for day-to-day survival, you can't really hunt with them, but they were a huge symbol of power. They actually raised one from the bay in 1998.
A tangible link. Speaking of which, let's talk about the first child born on the island, Fletcher Christian's son.
Thursday, October Christian.
The best name in history.
Ah,
And he leads us to this amazing calendar puzzle, the Thursday versus Friday problem.
right. It's so nerdy and I love it. It's all about the international dateline, which didn't really exist as a concept yet. The Bounty sailed east to get to Tahiti.
Okay, sailing towards the sunrise.
Exactly. So every day you're gaining a little bit of time. By the time they crossed 180 degrees longitude and got to Pitcairn, they were a full day ahead of where they should have been on the calendar.
But they didn't know to skip a day. So their ship's log was off by 1 day.
Precisely. So when his son is born, Fletcher Christian writes in the log, Thursday. But for the rest of the world, it was already Friday on that side of the planet.
And no one knows this for almost 20 years.
Not until 1808, when an American sealing ship, the Topaz, stumbles on the island by accident. Its captain, Mayhew Folger, had sailed west. So his calendar was correct.
So he lands and tells them, hey, it's Friday.
Imagine that conversation. And Thursday, October Christian actually changes his name to Friday, October Christian for a while.
That's amazing.
There's a sketch of him by a later British visitor titled Friday, Fletcher, October Christian. They did eventually sort it out, and he went back to Thursday. It's like something out of Jules Verne.
So 1808, the world finds them. The secret is out. I mean, what was the reaction back in Britain?
It was a massive story, but the narrative had changed. They weren't bloodthirsty mutineers anymore. They were this pious, peaceful, English-speaking community led by this repentant old man, John Adams.
The Victorian morality play.
That's it, exactly. Adam was given a pardon, but rediscovery created a new problem: overpopulation. The island is tiny.
And the solution was to move them.
Twice. And the first time, in 1831, was a catastrophe. They moved them all back to Tahiti.
Oh, that's a terrible idea.
They had no immunity. They started dying from fevers almost immediately. Thursday, October Christian died in Tahiti, so the survivors they went back home, back to Pitcairn.
But the island was still too small.
By 1856, there were almost 200 people. So the British government moved the entire population again, this time to Norfolk Island, a former penal colony near Australia.
And that was the end of the original settlement.
It was meant to be, but after a few years, a couple of families got homesick for their rock, so they sailed all the way back. The 40 or 50 people on Pitcairn today are their descendants.
What a saga. It starts as a romance, becomes a true crime story, and ends as a lesson in, I don't know, sheer human endurance.
It really is, and it's a testament to the strength of those Polynesian women. They took this nightmare of violence and betrayal and somehow forged a functioning, lasting community out of it.
Before we sign off, I just want to leave our listeners with one thought. Put yourself on that island in, say, 1795.
Okay.
You are trapped. The island is 2 miles wide. The ocean is everything. And the men you live with, the fathers of your children, are the same men who murdered your Tahitian husband or brother just a year or two before.
It's a heavy thought. Every single day you have to choose to cooperate because the only other option is for everyone to die.
Right. So was it paradise? Or was it a prison where you were forced to live with your trauma every single second of every day with no escape? It really makes you rethink the whole idea of a tropical sunset.
It certainly does. It asks what you'd be willing to forgive just to survive.
That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening.
Until next time.